wants the 2-digit verification code. Or
All right, we're
6 digits.
live on YouTube.
All right, live there. And let me go ahead and share my screen because I don't have a mouse, and so I'm trackpadding everything. Present. All right, and we'll start the broadcast here.
All right, we're live on YouTube.
Right there. All right, let me stop sharing for a second because I hear myself on the YouTube channel. Second. So we're letting people file in here. Michelle, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here today, everybody. I hope everybody had a happy and safe 4th of July weekend. I thought it was a great weekend here. We spent a lot of time in the water here at the lake, enjoyed the fireworks on the water. So I hope everybody else had a nice, safe one as well.
Share my screen. What's going on with your
video?
Your video?
Yeah, it's back.
All right. That's the wrong slide. What happened here?
Oh yeah, okay. That was last time.
That was last time. I think I may have forgotten to update the title or somehow revert it back there. So let's just continue on with that. All right. Well, welcome to another QB Power Hour. Today, as the title slide would not tell you, it's not actually feature deep dive. That's what we did last time. But this time is declaring your independence from Busywork with Zapier. And if you say the word Zapier, you have to have Heather Satterley in the same sentence. So we asked her to come on and talk a little bit about Zapier. And we also have a special guest lurking in the wings at the end. So stay tuned for that. But Michelle, you want to go ahead and tell us who you are?
Hi, everyone. Michelle Long, owner of Long for Success. Very glad to have you all joining me today. And I did get some complaints last time that I haven't showed the puppy lately, so I'll probably do that at some point throughout while Heather's talking or something. He's behaving himself right now. So he learned to swim in the lake this weekend. Yay! And he wasn't terrified of the fireworks, so it's all good.
That's always a concern, you know.
It is, yeah. Honestly.
Our dog didn't have any problems with all the fireworks, but he is scared of everything else, but not the fireworks. It didn't quite make sense, but I'm not a dog. But I am Dan DeLong.
There you go, Dan.
All right, owner Dan Witz. We transform businesses through technology. The co-host here today, formerly of Intuit, worked there for about 18 years, and current projects are technically editing QBO for Dummies and the chief content creator at schoolbookkeeping.com. Heather, tell us about yourself. There's a lot of tops in here, as I was noticing in the slide.
Oh. Yeah. Hi, I'm Heather Satterley. I'm the founder of Satterley Business Solutions, and I live in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I'm also the co-host of the Happy Hour with Liz and Heather, and I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat and in the participant list. So I also just started a podcast. Actually, I say I just started. We've been doing it for about a year, but we went live in April, called the Accounting Automation Podcast. I'm doing that with Brian Clare. And so we do about a half an hour on our podcast. We talk about different ways to automate your practice in your firm. So not just Zapier, but other technologies as well. So that's a lot of fun. And I think those can be downloaded anywhere you can download a podcast. So thank you so much, Michelle and Dan, for having me on. I love hanging out with you guys. I miss hanging out with you guys in person. And so anytime I have that opportunity, I'm super happy. So thank you.
Soon we will be in person.
We will. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so a little bit about the QB Power Hour webinars. They're special, or actually every other Tuesday at noon, which is really weird because I'm actually on that time right now. Typically, I'm in Arizona and never on this time zone, but I'm actually in Charleston, South Carolina right now, on location. And actually, it is noon time here. But some of the upcoming events that we're going to be having actually next week. So normally it's bi-weekly, but we're going to have a special event next week with Roadmap to Advisory with Path App. They've joined us before, and we're going to have them on a special event. So as long as you've registered for the QB Power Hour webinar series, you'll get a notification next week to join us there as well. And then we'll have a Relay, our friends at Relay, coming back and talking about some AP enhancements that they've done in their solution. And then finally, Hector is going to be coming back. We finally pinned him down to a date. He's going to be talking about the reporting enhancements in QBO Advanced. So we're really excited about him coming on. It'll be like a QB Power Hour reunion.
Yep.
Right.
A blast from the past.
Not as cool as a Friends reunion, but I think it will still have some fun things going on there. And then we're going to have Geeta Faust come back on the 17th of August to talk about real estate flips and how to handle those inside of QuickBooks. So of course, there's a link there for the PDF of all the slides. You can rewatch the recordings on Michelle's YouTube channel, and of course, we have the podcast as well. So our agenda today. So we're going to be talking about some automation in your practice. Well, Heather's going to be talking about automation in your practice, and we'll just be here for peanut galleries. And then some best practices, some intro to Zapier, simple tasks that you can do with Zapier, and then how do you take Zapier to the next level? And of course, we'll have our super secret surprise guest joining us at the end of the hour. So we'll start off with our first poll. Do you currently automate? And while that's going on, I'm going to stop sharing so Heather can start sharing. Do you do anything in your practice or your firm or with your clients to automate something? It doesn't have to be with Zapier. It just could be any kind of automation.
And while we're doing that, Heather, where do they find your podcast? Oh, she just typed it in there. You muted yourself, Heather. I can't hear you.
I did mute myself.
Oh, there you go.
After muting myself. So you can find them anywhere you can download podcasts. So we're part of the Cloud Accounting Podcast Network. So I believe Apple, if you go to Apple Podcasts, I think Google Play, I think has something like that. So
yeah, it's a nice part about a lot of podcasts like where we host ours. You can feed that out to all of them. And so same kind of situation is that you can, wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts, that's where you go and you find it and you subscribe to it there.
Yes, because now actually we turn the QB Power Hours into podcasts as well. So if you're not able to listen and watch, you can listen on the road.
Right.
With everybody going back to the office.
You don't want to be watching on the road because that would be bad. Okay, so it looks like I'll go ahead and close out the poll here. So currently it looks like about 59% of our audience does automate something. And then, so we'll go from there. So let me go ahead and close this out. So Heather, to automate or not to automate, is that Shakespeare? I don't remember that in Hamlet.
I don't think that was in Hamlet, but I think it's when you're thinking about automation, I think it's the perfect place to start, right? Because automation can be amazing or it can be really impersonal. And so I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about that because one of the things that I found when I first started tinkering with automation was that I wanted to automate anything or everything that I could. And what I found was I got actually a little bit of pushback from from my clients and others when I started to automate a little too much. So I got a little overzealous in my automation. So I thought it was important to kind of talk about that. So we're going to be talking about this discussion with you guys about creating valuable automations while preserving your firm's personal touch, because we're in a service industry And one of the things we want to be really mindful of is not making it robotic, right? Not making it so automated that our clients feel like, we're not really communicating with them, because as accounting professionals, it's so important that we have a relationship with them and they feel like we're there and that we understand their needs and we understand who they are. So I just wanted to start off with that, because I think that's something that when we, dive into automation, we're like, no more manual entry, no more, everything's going to be, automatic. And I think it's important to slow down and talk about when is that valuable and when is that actually kind of contrary to what you want to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, as we're, every conference that we go to, they're all talking about, how to make things more efficient for us in the accounting industry. When do you actually, when's enough's enough, right? Like when is it too much automation, because now you've got to kind of dial it back. And that's a good learning, good nugget from what we can take away from just this talk, I think.
Definitely. So the definition of automation, there's three, but I kind of want to focus on the third one here, which is automatically controlled operation of an apparatus, process, or system by mechanical or electronic devices that takes the place of human labor. And that's where I want to focus, because we're taking the place of that human interaction. And a lot of times that's really good, right? Because that's what allows us to free up our time and our resources to have those human relationships, right? And focus on that part, which is like the advisory, learning new things, sharing our learnings with our clients. And we can have the machines take over the mundane data entry tasks, but we have to be really careful, as I said before, because if it's too automated, then you lose that personal touch. So I think it's important to, I read a book, and I need to get into the habit of writing down the books that I read and who they're by, because I get all these great ideas and then I can't remember who wrote it. But I read this great book, and it was talking about this, how automation by definition is to remove the human aspect of whatever task we're doing. And so in a service business, it's so important to make sure that we're putting the automations in a place where it's not really touching the other human. It's kind of working behind the scenes for us.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, because I remember the first time I heard of Zapier and Heather Satterley in the same sentence was, how do you respond to those ProAdvisor leads, right, in a timely fashion? And I think that was a great example of automation that still allows you to have that personal touch and that human interaction, but in a timely fashion. Because if you never go further than that, if that lead never happens to anything, then of course there's no need for anything, any kind of automation after that, because there's no engagement with that.
And part of it is, putting the personality and that human touch into the automation. Like with that particular Zap, which actually no longer works anymore because Intuit now hides. I can't do it because it hides the email address. But is creating the wording in your communications that are automated, that have a personal touch, and give them the option to have like a face-to-face or a human interaction for whatever it is that you're asking them to do. And that was kind of the learning that I've taken away from that, is you always want to give them the option to have you help them through whatever it is that you're asking them to do. And so just the way you phrase something in an email, or, when you're writing out a questionnaire to gather information from a client, the way that you word it can make it feel personal, even though the thing is completely automated. Right. So, all right. So as I mentioned, automation is impersonal by nature, but there are lots of ways that we can add our personal touch to it. And so, I just felt like that was a really important discussion. So here are just some tips. Use communication templates, but always add a personal message. So one of the things that we do in our firm, and if you're not doing this is a way that you can right now save a ton of time in your life, is to create email templates. So whether you're using Gmail, Outlook, whatever it is, you have the ability to create what are called canned emails. And in those canned emails, you're basically saying what it is that you hit reply and say 100 times a day, maybe not 100 times a day, but 10 times a day in different ways to your client. And it takes, 5-10 minutes to type up that same email every time. Create a template. But to keep it personal, make sure that you're putting in a space for a personal message to say, I recognize that you are a person, and I'm, you want to add a sentence just saying, hey, it was really nice to talk to you yesterday, and maybe mention something you talked about in that conversation. That keeps it personal. You want to also include steps to keep your team informed that an automated communication has occurred. So when you put things on autopilot, one of the things that happens is it can fall off the radar of somebody that needs to be paying attention to it. So when you're building out your automations, you may want to add a step in it to notify something that an automation has happened. Like, for example, if I send, an automated email to somebody saying, book some time on my schedule, I may want to let my operations coordinator know that I've just sent out, a communication asking somebody to book time on my calendar. So just think about that thing and, think about that kind of thing, and then be intentional, excuse me, about what you want to automate and why. Right. So one of the things that I did when I first started working with Zapier, and we're going to jump into that in just a minute, is that I wanted to automate everything. I was like, oh my gosh, this is life-changing. I'm going to automate everything. I'm going to have all this free time. And I didn't really stop to think about, how my automations were affecting other people and how they were perceived. And also, I didn't look at the big picture. It's like creating a bunch of Band-Aids across all your processes rather than looking at your processes as a whole, as a system, and then analyzing where do those automations make sense, right? And where are you really going to gain those efficiencies?
Well, yeah, and it comes back to the adage of, this is a tool, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that it is, a universal tool for everything. You have a hammer, and you're never going to saw wood with that. So it's got a use, right? Yep. But it's not always going to be the best tool to be using in that regard. One of the things that I love Zapier as a tool when for the Power Hour, because we decided to switch from GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar to Zoom, and we have all of these pre-registered people that were already registered. It would be impersonable of me to ask all of them to re-register for Zoom.
Right.
Right. And unfortunately, GoToWebinar and Zoom didn't integrate, so there was that gap or the question of, well, how do we get all of these people re-registered in the new platform? And Zapier came to the rescue for that, and I think that was a good way to use it, because one, it didn't require me to send out a mass email to thousands of people and say, hey, could you please register again? And then of course the message wouldn't get received, or I can't re-register or anything like that. And so this was a perfect way for us to re-register everyone in the new channel.
Definitely. The last thing that I just had said on this was, and I had said it before, consider offering a personal alternative to the automation. So, and that's as simple as saying, hey, if you need help with this, reply, and somebody will help you through this process. So I just added a couple of examples. These are actual emails that we use in my life. So this one is just the initial. This was very similar to the email that I used in that Find a ProAdvisor auto response, was thanks for reaching out. And then notice that I put brackets for inserting a personal note. So if I've already talked to them, then I can just put in something that, came up during our meeting. For your convenience, I'm including this link. There's a hyperlink there, so they can just click on it and schedule the time. And then basically, I also give them on the third line, it says, if you're unable to find a suitable time on my calendar, reply with a few dates and times and we'll find something. And what that does is that adds the personal touch to this automated email by saying, hey, if you get into my calendar and I'm booking 3 weeks out and you need me before that, send me some dates and times and I'll try to accommodate. No promises, but I'll try to accommodate. Another one here, and this is one of my favorite ones, is this is the template that we use when we have a new prospective client and we need to look at their QuickBooks Online company in order to take a look at their books and go through that client overview tab to see what the scope of work is going to be. So what this does is this is a template that my whole team has access to. When we need to invite that client, we just use this template. It gives them exactly what they need to do. This links out to that screen within QuickBooks Online where they can go and invite me as an accountant user, and it tells them exactly what to do. Now, for me to type this out one by one is going to take 10 to 15 minutes, but I don't have to do that ever again because I now have a template. Go into my email and I just go ahead and grab that template, put a little personal note in there, and off it goes. And it makes it easy for them, and it's a good client experience. So that's a really great way to get started with automation. If you're not quite ready to go into something like Zapier, creating these templated emails can be a huge time saver for you and your team. So
There's a question in the chat about figuring out email templates. Where would be a good place to, a good resource to for someone to start with templates?
So to get started with templates, first there's a, if you're looking for the wording of a template, like if you're having trouble coming up with the words to use, there is an app. It's a free app called letterspro.com. My friend Richard Ropa actually told me about it, and it has a zillion letters that you can kind of get started, get your creative juices flowing. And then to actually learn how to set them up, whether you're in Outlook or Gmail, I would say Google it. That's how I find everything in life is I Google set up canned email in Gmail, set up automated email, and then I go through and I usually find the instructions that way.
And Heather, I would like to add something to that because sometimes when I try Googling things, I can't find it because there's so many ads and so many promoted ones first. I will go to DuckDuckGo and search, and sometimes I have better results because DuckDuckGo doesn't have the same ranking and paid things that Google does. So if you are having trouble, try DuckDuckGo.
I've never even heard of DuckDuckGo, so thank you.
Oh, really?
I'll have to check it out. I'll have to check it out.
Well, like somebody said they were looking for setting it up in Office 365 and all they could find was Outlook, Outlook, the 365 version. All they could find was the desktop version. If you go to DuckDuckGo, you might be able to find it easier and better.
That's true. And also just, use as many keywords as you can, because that helps to narrow down the search results. So if you're looking for templates, you could put email templates, canned emails, and then you might get better search results that way. All right. So I'm going to jump into Zapier now. And we're going to talk about automating non-client facing tasks. It's almost always okay to do that. So when you're not having any kind of face-to-face or client interacting automations, it's okay to just go ahead and do it, and you don't have to really think about it. So one way is automating the creation of file folders. So we're actually going to learn how to do this with Zapier, where maybe somebody accepts an engagement letter in Practice Ignition and they accept your proposal. We can have Zapier go in and create the entire file structure for that client. All the folders, permanent file, tax file, whatever file you have, it can go ahead and create that. You can automate the import of payment processing fees. For those of you that are working with clients that use PayPal or Square or Shopify or Amazon Seller, I think that's what it's called. They have these apps that bring in the sales just fine, but they don't bring the fees in, or they bring the fees in one by one. Well, there's ways with Zapier. The easy way, and what you're going to learn today, is that you can bring the fees in one by one into a clearing account, or you can even use more robust and I don't want to say complicated, more robust and powerful features in Zapier that help you to aggregate all of those fees for a day and then post it as one entry per day rather than posting it one by one. And then we're also going to learn, this is so cool, this is my favorite one, intercompany allocations. How many of you guys have clients that have two companies, one maybe the holding company for their real estate and one for their business, and they're constantly doing intercompanies? You have to tie those out every month. Well, you can create an automation in Zapier that when you create an expense in one company, it calculates the allocation percentage and then posts the entry automatically to the second QuickBooks company. So that's a way. And what I love about Zapier is we're actually we're building apps. Like, I'm an accountant, I'm not a developer. I am building apps in Zapier to do the things that I want done in the way that I want them done, which gives me a power that I never had before Zapier, where I can go in and build these integrations that are tailored to the needs of me and my client. So I guess it's time for a poll.
Yeah, look at that.
So Heather,
Right.
while Dan launches that poll, I have a question for you. So as you know, Heather, with QBO Advanced, they have these new workflows and automated workflows where, like on invoices, you can have it automatically send reminders and things. And, you know, at first I was like, oh my, that's going to kind of eat up the Zapier stuff. But still, there's so many more things that you cannot do that you can do with Zapier. Is that correct? Do you want to kind of touch on that for a minute or no?
Yeah, definitely. So with the QuickBooks Online Advanced workflows, for the most part, you're just automating communications with your customers and with your team, right? So like you said, they have the automated invoice reminder. They have remind me to make a deposit, things like that. Whereas with Zapier, Intuit has connected almost the entire API of QuickBooks to Zapier. So all of the fields and resources and transactions that you can create and interact with in QuickBooks Online, you can now take data from other applications and basically send it automatically or automatically, as you say, Michelle, over to QuickBooks Online. And you can also take, you can also create automations from when things happen in QuickBooks Online. For example, one of the ones that I have set up is the W-9 collections app, I call it. So when you add a new vendor in QuickBooks Online and you select the box when you're sending the vendor that they're subject to 1099 reporting, Zapier automatically sends them an email with a link to my share file folder and a blank W-9 attached that comes right from the IRS website. So I never have to do that. My team knows, make sure you have an email address in there because otherwise it's not going to work. You have to put the email of the vendor and then check that box. And when you save it, that email files off. We don't do anything else. And then you could even set up a second Zap that would watch that folder to let you know when somebody uploads the completed W-9. So that's something that's way outside of what you can do with that workflow tab in
Plus, there's no spam from Intuit trying to get them to set up a self-employed account when you do
exactly.
And now that's just a common complaint that some of our clients have is they don't want the vendors to have to set that up. So this is a good alternative to that. And Heather, a couple of people want to know if Zapier works with desktop.
So sadly, no, not directly. So Zapier works with apps that use a RESTful API, which in developer speak, which is really complicated, basically said is a SaaS, a web-based application. So something that's hosted and is assessed through the internet, right, through a browser. So desktop does not meet that. That being said, if you have automations like automated emails and things that are coming out of QuickBooks Desktop, you could, using some tools in Zapier, capture information from that using Zapier, but there's no direct integration with QuickBooks Desktop at this time.
It looks like most people have heard of Zapier, but not really dove into put their foot in the water of what that is. So hopefully we won't dive you into the deep end of the pool, but we should be giving you a little bit of insight as to what actually is Zapier and what you can do. Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to tackle next is what is it? What is Zapier? She's been talking about Zapier. We have no idea what it is.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead. Can they see my screen or are you still?
Nope.
I'm still seeing the poll results. Okay, perfect.
I see your slides.
Okay, perfect. So what is Zapier? Zapier is a cloud-based application that is basically, think of it as a hub that allows you to connect over 3,000 applications to Zapier and then create your own custom integrations between them and workflows between them. So, and the cool part about Zapier is you don't have to know any code. So it's all kind of, it's not drag and drop at all, but it's basically, it puts it into a dashboard that allows you to logically think through the flow of the data and build out the automations. So that's what it is. It says it connects to over 2,000 apps. It's actually over 3,000 cloud-based apps now. So if you go on out to Zapier.com, and I'll get in there in a minute, you can actually look at all the apps that are on the Zapier platform, and they even have recipes. So they have templates that you can just basically plug and play. So you could go in there, pick a couple of apps that you're using like Gmail and QuickBooks Online, and then it will actually show you a bunch of templates that work with both of those apps. And if you decide you want to use one, you just say create as app. It kind of sets it up for you, and then you connect your accounts and you can make any modifications that you want. So Zapier connects the apps. You can share the data between them, and it uses what's called triggers and actions to do it. So one of the things that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around is that with some integration apps like Transaction Pro, Importer, Exporter, or SASANT, what you're doing is you're taking data and you're migrating it over to another application. So you're taking data from Excel and then you're putting it into QuickBooks, right? Or you're exporting it from QuickBooks. The way Zapier works is you set up the automation, and then the automation runs every time a trigger occurs in the trigger app. So for example, if in that W9 collections app that I was just talking about, the trigger is a new vendor is created in QuickBooks Online, right? So every time, so if I have a bunch of vendors in QuickBooks Online and I want to send them a blank W9, Zapier is not going to help me. There is a way, there is a workaround, but for, out of the box, Zapier is not going to help you because it's only going to run the automation when a new vendor is added in QuickBooks Online. So what it will do is you add that vendor, you save it. Zapier is sending a call out to QuickBooks Online. It's going and knocking on QuickBooks door saying, hey, is there a new vendor? Got a new vendor? And it's doing that every 15 minutes, every 5 minutes, or every minute, depending on the plan that you have. And so when it goes and knocks on the door of QuickBooks and QuickBooks says back, yep, I got a new vendor, then what happens is Zapier grabs all the information that was in that vendor record in QuickBooks, and then you're able to take that data, the vendor name, the email address, whether that box is checked for the 1099, and then you can use that data in an action step to do something else. So in the W9 example, what we're doing is we're grabbing the email address from the vendor and we're saying, use my Gmail account. The action is send a Gmail email, send it to that email address that was in that vendor record. And then, by the way, go out to the IRS website and grab a blank W9 and attach it to that email. Okay. So what we're doing is we're saying trigger is that new vendor, action is send an email. And then using the tools within Zapier, we're able to do really cool things like add a share file link or add that W9 from the IRS website.
So Heather, I have a quick question for you. So you
Sure.
said go out to the IRS website and get that blank form. Could you also have it go look in my share file or look on my hard drive or OneDrive or wherever and get this document and attach it?
Absolutely,
you could do that. A link from a website.
No, it could absolutely be something that you have. I could tell it. It depends. So yes, in theory, but it ultimately depends on whether or not the app that you have in that action step or in the Zap allows you to go retrieve that document. And most of them do. So with Google Drive, there is an action step, which is find file. So if I had a template, right, I could say trigger is that vendor, that vendor box. Then I could say, go find a file, Google Drive, find the file, and then it will grab the URL of that file from my Google Drive, and it will attach it in any format I want. You can attach it as a Word document, as a Google Doc, as a PDF. There's a bunch of different ways that as a text. So it is very versatile in that way. And the same thing with Share File. I actually have a Zap that I use for Appy Hour when we got a new sponsor coming on the show. It actually grabs our PowerPoint template and puts it in their share file because it creates a share file folder for them. And it automatically puts a blank template of our Appy Hour PowerPoint deck in there without us having to do anything. So that's how powerful it is. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's how powerful it is. And you can see here's some apps on this slide. This is just a sprinkling of the apps that are available on Zapier. So we've got Arrow Workflow, Slack, ShareFile, Practice Ignition, Airtable, QuickBooks, MailChimp, Google Forms.
Heather, do you know if it integrates with Lisio? Somebody asked.
It does not currently integrate with Lisio.
Okay.
Yeah, not currently. So, so I'm just going to go through a couple of Zaps that I thought would be of interest to everybody, just as a sprinkling of ideas. So you can kind of think about how you might start using Zapier in your own firm and eventually with your clients. So the first one is automate the creation of file folders. And you can do this in Google Docs, ShareFile, OneDrive, or Dropbox. And so what we're going to do is, and this is a real Zap that we have, except instead of Google Drive, we use ShareFile. But we use this in our lives. Proposal is accepted by Practice Ignition. It goes in and it creates the client parent folder. Then it goes ahead and it creates all the subfolders underneath. So we have a whole file structure, which is the template that we use in our firm. Everybody gets the same one. And then what it does is it automatically creates that file structure with the client name using the information from that proposal that was accepted in Practice Ignition. So let me show you. Let's get into Zapier so you can see exactly what it looks like. So I'm in Zapier here, and I'm going to go in to this Zap. If I wanted to create a new Zap, I could click Make a Zap. But because we're short on time, I'm just going to go in and show you what the editor looks like. So I've gone into the editor, and this is what it looks like. I can give it a name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the trigger event. So the trigger event for this workflow is the client signs the engagement letter, right? Now my client, yay! And I need a bunch of file folders so I can start putting stuff in them, right? So I'm going to choose the app, which is Practice Ignition. The proposal is accepted. I would go ahead and connect an account. So here's my account. And then I would test the trigger to get some test data. So here's my test data. And you can see that what it's done is it's gone out to Practice Ignition and it's pulled in all this information about this proposal. So the period end date, who accepted it, the proposal value, the client name, the contact name, and the email address. So all of this is coming in. And what happens once it pulls it into Zapier is I can now use those fields to do stuff, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create that client parent folder. So I'm going to select Google Drive as the app, the action app, and I'm going to select the action event as create a folder. So I'm saying go on out to my Google Drive and create this new folder. So I'm going to do that. And then what you can see is I'm going to connect the account. I'm going to go in and I'm going to select the drive. If I had multiple drives and I could, select that. I could select a parent folder if I wanted to. And then under the folder name, this is where the magic happens, everybody, is I'm able to map that folder name back to the trigger data. So the client name from that proposal was Zapier test. What I'm telling Zapier here is when a proposal is accepted, go on and grab that client name and create a blank folder in my Google Drive that's using that name. So every time this fires off, it's going to be a different client. I'm going to have a different folder name. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create that. Well, I need a lot more than just one folder. Well, one of the cool things about Zapier is it pulls in, once it creates that folder, it actually pulls in the information about that folder. So I can start to build on the whole workflow. So here's the ID for that folder. And if I were to go in and use this link right here, it would bring me to that folder in my Google Drive account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add the permanent file folder. Again, I'm going to choose Google Drive, create a folder. I'm going to connect to my account. And then what I'm going to do is under that parent folder, I'm able to map it back to that second step. So what I'm saying is the parent folder, I want to nest this permanent file folder in the parent folder, which was test client, right? And so now I'm saying, go look at this client, this folder ID, which was that parent folder that I just created, and add a new folder called permanent file. So you could see here that I could actually have like 10 steps and create the entire blank file structure for that client without doing anything. All they do is sign their engagement, bam, file structure's created.
So how much time do you think is saved by this Zap and this automation, just from having to do it manually?
From having to do it manually, probably 10 or 15 minutes.
10 or 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And like, how much time did it take you to set up the Zap?
So to set up the Zap can take a little bit of time up front. This Zap with just 2 folders probably took me 3 to 5 minutes. If I was building out, when I built our Reels app, and we have it doing a lot of things. So this one proposal being accepted could set up the entire file structure, could add them to a MailChimp list, could add them to what else do we have going on? We can send a Slack. We have a Slack message that goes into the team saying, "Woohoo, we got a new client." It can do a bunch of different things from that one trigger. So I have Zaps that are 48 steps that do a whole bunch of stuff off of one trigger.
And even if it takes you an hour to set this up, the time savings that you're creating further on down the road is, exponential, right? You
exactly.
can start to clone Heather Satterley.
That's exactly right. I actually did. There's actually a little widget that Zapier has on how many hours it saved you, and mine was like nice. Over 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think is so cool is not the time it saves is huge, yes, but also just knowing it's going to get done and it's not going to fall through the cracks, that it's not something that's going to get overlooked or, whatever. So I think that's huge too. Peace of mind, knowing that it's done.
And if it doesn't, it sends you an email.
That's right.
Yep.
It does.
Which is more than what most people will do. Just doesn't get done. Doesn't get done.
No, it does. And you do have to pay attention, and it does. You have to pay attention, especially if you start writing Zaps for your clients, right? You need to pay attention. And there's a built-in app in Zapier called Zapier Manager that allows you to set up custom automations to let you know what's going on in your Zapier account. So if a Zap fails, if an app becomes disconnected, you're getting notifications and you can take action. So the next one, I only have a few more minutes because I got to teach a webinar in a few minutes, but the next one I wanted to talk about was automating the import of payment processing fees. And you could do this with Square, Stripe, PayPal, or Amazon. Whenever a sale happens in any one of these apps, it pulls in the payment amount and the fees associated with that payment. And one of the challenges we've had as accounting professionals is we can get the sales in using different apps. Those fees have been kind of a thorn in our side. And with these integrations, what you can do is set up a clearing account in QuickBooks, have the sales go into clearing account, right? Have this Zap turned on to pull the fees in. So the account gets bigger when the sale happens. Now we've got the fees coming out, and then just set up a bank rule in QuickBooks Online to transfer every time a Stripe payment comes in, transfer from that clearing account. Guess what happens? End of the month, your clearing account's already reconciled. All the fees are in, all the payments are in, your bank account's got the transfers. It is an awesome workflow, saves you a ton of time. And this is something that is saving you time for services that you're offering to your clients. This is your secret sauce, right?
Exactly. Because, I was tinkering around with OneSaaS, and they're very good at bringing in the sale, but not the fees.
Right.
So this would be a great way to bridge that gap between what it can do, what other apps can do, or where they stop, and between, like you said, your secret sauce.
Definitely. And so again, this is a trigger as the new charge in Stripe, create an expense in QuickBooks Online. That's simple because it's showing you the fee. You're just sending it over as an expense transaction into that clearing account. Easy peasy. All right. The last one is, this one's more complicated. So this is where we're kind of supercharging and building actual apps with Zapier. We're going to automate our intercompany allocations. So company 1 incurs an expense. It's going to calculate the allocation amount, and then it's going to create a journal entry in QBO for company number 2. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Triggers a new expense. It's going to look up the expense account that it's coming from. So whatever expense account that you have used in company 1, it's going to make a multiplication calculation to take that amount and multiply it by 25%, right? And then we're going to go find a vendor in QuickBooks Online and Company 2, and then either create an expense or you can create a journal entry. Okay, and so this is a pretty advanced Zap. What it's doing here is we're creating a lookup table inside QuickBooks Online saying account number in Company 1 associates with account number in Company 2. And we could have, several different accounts, and it will actually look at it and say, hey, if you see this in Company 1, use this in Company 2. And then we're mapping, when we're going into the create the expense, we're mapping back to the output of step 2, where it said, miscellaneous expense was in Company 1. Well, when it's miscellaneous expense in Company 1, which is account, it's going to go use the miscellaneous account that's in Company 2. Does that make sense? Hope I explained that pretty clearly.
Yeah, I think either people are nodding yes, 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 or either they're just
right.
Over
it is. So let me just show it to you. I'm going to just show you how this works really, really quickly in here, and then I'm going to have to jump off. Yeah. So this one's a little bit different. I'll show you the calculation. So here in the numbers, I'm able to tell Zapier to perform a math operation, and I'm telling it to multiply the total amount of the expense in Company A times 20.2, which is 20%. And then what's happening is it's going to spit out, let me retest because I don't think, it's going to spit out the 20% of that amount. Now what I'm able to do is go in and create an expense transaction, and notice that I'm using an intercompany clearing account. And I'm going to, let me get into the action. And what it's going to do is it would go ahead and it would grab the information from that transaction, right? And then it would grab the 20% from that calculation step. So it's very logical, right? It's very logical. Each step you're going through and you're saying, what needs to happen? Where's the data coming from? What do I need to do to that data? And then how do I want it to present in the company that I'm trying to create the entry in? And so to wrap up, what I would say is, sorry, that was me being silly. Sorry about that. But the thing that that is really important is that you have to map out your processes first. So it's not, when you first start using Zapier, and I'm totally was guilty of this, you just go in and you start creating automations. Like, I have this great idea, I'm going to go build it. But really you need to stand back and go back to what we said at the very beginning of this is, what are you trying to accomplish? What is the flow of the data, right? And how does it all relate to itself? So actually mapping it out, I use a Google Sheet for this. Step 1, here's the trigger. Step 2, here's the action. Do I need to do a calculation? Where am I mapping back the data? Kind of figuring all that out is important. And I did throw a lot at you. The simple Zap, awesome. Everybody's like, wow, this is great. You go into the complicated Zap, it's like, okay, I'm done, right? But the cool thing is it is a journey, right?
And how can they continue on the journey, Heather? Because we already asked some people wanting to know about a deeper dive. And I told them you do have some upcoming events. So would you like to share with us where they can learn some more?
Yeah, so I do workshops. I do Zapier workshops where you learn from no experience all the way up to building that intercompany Zap. And we also focus on client onboarding. So getting all of those automations for your practice to get your clients onboarded to your systems. So I do that. I'm just wrapping one up actually today after this call. I'll probably be doing another one in the fall, or I'm actually teaching it at Scaling New Heights in October. So if you guys are going to Scaling New Heights, I'm doing an introductory course. It's 120 minutes where we're going to go through the basics of Zapier and how to get started. There's also Zapier University, which is at zapier.com//university, free training there that you could start to kind of dabble and get some more ideas on how to use Zapier and maybe jump in and build your first app.
Well, thank you, Heather. And I do know you have to jump. So thank you. Dan and I will continue to share some stuff with people. So thank you, though, for joining us. And it is awesome. And I love you for this. So thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys. You guys have an awesome day. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Take
Heather.
care.
Great to see you.
Bye-bye.
And we can't wait to see you in person.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Counting the days.
And that's what I was going to lead into is Heather mentioned that she's teaching this up in Scaling New Heights in October. And we had a special guest on, but he also had to jump. So Dan and I are going to talk a little bit about Scaling New Heights while Heather goes off to her next webinar. But for those of you that are thinking about joining us at Scaling New Heights, please do. It is an amazing conference. And I am so excited, Dan. I don't know about you. It's our first live event, like forever. I know Scaling had one, but it wasn't the same. It was the scaled back scaling.
It was a scaled scaling.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone in person again. You know, and I'm planning on joining there, and you know, maybe I'll get roped into teaching a class or two
Yes.
while I'm there.
Well, I am definitely teaching a couple classes. I would love to have you guys join me for that. One of them is on best practices for referrals and how to create that referral network and keep it going and everything. Another one that I'm going to be doing is on doing simple videos, using YouTube and doing videos. Because surprisingly, a lot of people are wanting to get into that, but they're not real sure. So we're going to start with the basics. What do you need to get going? And then you can, you know, expand and get more in depth on that. But the greatest thing I think about Scaling New Heights is not just all the great training content, but it's networking with each other. It's in the lunchroom, it's in the exhibit hall, it's at the parties, you know, which I wondered what's going to happen because we don't have T-sheets anymore.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
T-sheets always had the best parties.
QuickBooks time parties just don't have the same ring to it.
I know, right? So anyway, we were going to have Joe to talk a little bit about it. So we'll try to have him on another one. But you all can go check it out at scalingnewheights.com. Scalingnewheights.com. And I know in the QB Power Hour Facebook group, there has been discussion out there of other people asking who's going and stuff. And that is a great place for you to network with your peers now, because a lot of times people will share a room or they'll rent an Airbnb together. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, you can do some of that on the Facebook group to see if there's anybody who's interested in that for you. Somebody said, is Scaling New Heights going to be online or Zoom? I know it's definitely in person down in Fort Worth, Texas. So it is going to be in person. I suspect they're going to have an online option available again, but I'm not positive about that. Do you know, Dan?
Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I'm sure there will be that option. These days, I mean, it was something that they did last year. You know, they had that hybrid event, so they already have that in place to be able to do that. And for those that don't know what Scaling New Heights is, what is Scaling New Heights? I mean, you know, we talk about it like you know, we've all been there, done that, and
yes,
you know, for most of us we have. But for somebody that's maybe just watching this for the first time and wondering, well, what is Scaling New Heights? What would you say that would be?
And that's a good question, Dan. And that's the thing too, you know, for accounting professionals, if you want to have your practice in the QuickBooks world, including apps and all those things that go along with QuickBooks, it is a perfect conference for you because they have a lot of training courses, a lot of sessions, not just on QuickBooks, but as well as third-party apps like Heather talking about Zapier. You know, different people get in and have different in-depth apps. So you have an in-depth session. You have sessions like I'm doing some on marketing. Some people we usually have there on value pricing. We usually always have some people there who are talking about practice management, automation, like Heather talked about, as well as, you know, a lot of times people talk about QuickBooks, let's say for restaurants, QuickBooks for contractors, QuickBooks for non-for-profits, not to mention the main stage sessions. So it's really a great opportunity to get a lot of training. Don wants to know how does scaling compare to QuickBooks Connect. QuickBooks Connect Scaling, they're both wonderful conferences, but Scaling has more third-party apps doing sessions where you can not just visit them in the exhibit hall, but you can go to their session to learn more about those third-party apps. QuickBooks Connect is amazing in their main stage speakers and things like that. But of course, we're not going to have a live in-person Connect this fall. They're going to do another virtual event this fall. So the virtual events for Connect are not quite the same because there's not as many sessions that you can go to.
Yeah, I think my perspective of attending both, QuickBooks Connect is very QuickBooks focused, as is scaling new heights. But you know, Intuit is driving the conversation of what it is that you're going to be seeing at QuickBooks Connect, whereas scaling is more of an advisory type of conversation that you're going to be hearing, and that could be advisory in QuickBooks Desktop, right? I mean, it doesn't whatever your version of QuickBooks you're akin to, you can still have apply those things to what you're doing. Whereas in QuickBooks Connect, it's the conversation is, well, how do you do this in QuickBooks Online? Because that's the driver, of QuickBooks Connect, is how do I do this all virtually in QuickBooks Online? Whereas Scaling New Heights is you could hear a little bit more how that works in QuickBooks Desktop.
Yes, and my Zoom has
And
can you
cut
hear
off.
me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so it's totally frozen as far as the video, like you are frozen and stuff. But one other thing I was just going to say, if you go to scalingnewheights.com, the theme this year is Unstoppable. It's October 24th to 27th, and you can go in and go under the session and the agendas. You can see the tracks and sessions and the agenda, and you can see all the great information. Money, but it is a great way to really advance your practice and to keep your practice moving forward and growing. So I do recommend it. Dan and I are going to try to put together some kind of cocktail party or something to have with QB Power Hour. We're looking for some sponsors maybe to help with that. So stay tuned, and hopefully we can have an event with some of you that are there.
And I just launched the last poll here of, do you plan on attending Scaling New Heights? So we can pass that along to Joe, so you can see, how much of our audience is planning on coming to see, going to Scaling New Heights. Do we have any other follow-up questions, other than the fact that Jonathan Bello wanted to know if Heather saw the Jamestown fireworks blow up?
Yeah, I don't. Fireworks, but ours were really awesome this year. I hope you all got to see some awesome fireworks as well. And somebody else asked if Heather used Google Drive and ShareFile. I know she uses ShareFile, and I would imagine she uses Google Drive for some things. Like I use OneDrive, but I also use Google Drive for some things. And so, some of us have different ones that we use for different purposes. So,
yeah.
And
I
somebody wanted to know how secure.
Go ahead. Well, one person was asking about, does it integrate with Lisio? And I know both of these apps will integrate with Google Drive. So there's a potential for that to be able to be the solution with the bridge between what it doesn't integrate with. If it doesn't do it directly with Zapier going to Lisio, you could use Google Drive as the bridge between the two.
Very good. All right. Well, I think we had a great session this time. I'm very glad. Oh, we've got 20% that are planning to go, 62% that are not. I hope you guys will think about it, because it is really great for your practice. And we'd love to meet some of you all in person. It's always nice to see our attendees who are joining us each week.
Well, thanks again for joining us today.
Remember, yes. And remember, next week on the 13th, we do have a special QB Power Hour. We're going to talk about, I can't remember, getting on the right path for your advisory services or something like that with Path by Simplex. That is a new app that's just really awesome. And it's really a great tool for you if you're wanting to provide more of these advisory services. So love to have you join me for that, or join us for that. Again, that's a special one next week. So you may not have it on your calendar. So put it on your calendar, and we'd love to see you there.
All right. And thanks for joining us this week on the QB Power Hour, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dan.